It started as a quiet inspection of the north pasture, where my cattle grazed peacefully under the early morning sun. That's when I noticed it. A thin, metallic line cutting across my land, freshly installed and running toward the lake. At first, I assumed it was some utility work, but the markings and connections screamed HOA. Sure enough, further investigation confirmed my suspicion. Karen and her board had illegally run a pipeline across my ranch, tapping into a water source without permission, consent, or any legal right. They thought they could steal water from my property for their own benefit, thinking I wouldn't notice or wouldn't act. I drove along the pipeline, inspecting every connection, valve, and access point. It was crude, obviously rushed, and entirely unauthorized. The audacity stunned me. Not only had they ignored property lines, but they had endangered the land's water supply, violated environmental regulations, and assumed I would simply let it slide. I smiled quietly to myself. They had made one critical error. They had misjudged the owner of the land, the understanding of water rights, and the consequences of overreach. Immediately, I contacted my attorney and initiated a plan that I had long envisioned but had hoped never to use. Instead of simply removing the pipeline, I traced its source to a private well that supplied multiple properties in the area. Using my knowledge of water law and property acquisitions, I quickly purchased the source property outright. Suddenly, the HOA's pipeline had no legal outlet. Their water supply depended entirely on a source I now controlled. Every valve they had tapped was on my land. Every drop of water flowing through the line was mine, and I held the rights to regulate or shut it off at will. The moment the acquisition was finalized, I exercised control. Valves were locked, connections secured, and the water flow was redirected. Within hours, the HOA noticed the sudden drop in pressure and began scrambling to figure out why their pipeline had stopped functioning. Karen's smug confidence evaporated as she realized she had been outmaneuvered completely. Their illegally diverted water was now unavailable, and any attempt to bypass the legal rights I now held would constitute trespassing, theft, and property damage. I didn't stop there. Documentation, signage, and a security system were added to the source property, ensuring that any future attempts to illegally access water would be immediately detected and enforceable. I even sent a polite but firm notice to Karen and the board, detailing the acquisition, outlining the legal consequences of any further tampering, and reminding them that any effort to restore their pipeline without my consent would result in severe civil and criminal liability. Their so-called HOA rights were completely nullified. Within days, the HOA was paralyzed. Water-dependent landscaping, fountains, and facilities suddenly dried up, forcing the board into emergency meetings and frantic negotiations. Residents began asking questions, neighbors spread rumors, and Karen's credibility evaporated entirely. Their plan to exploit my land had backfired spectacularly, turning into a public humiliation and a clear demonstration of my foresight, preparation, and legal knowledge. By the end of the week, peace returned to my ranch. The pipeline remained under my control, water flowed where I allowed it, and the HOA learned the hard way that trespassing and theft, even with infrastructure in place, could be turned against the perpetrators with the right strategy. Every time I pass the north pasture now, I smile. Karen's pipeline may have crossed my land, but it now runs entirely under my authority, a reminder that foresight, patience, and legal leverage can dry out even the boldest attempts at overreach.